Welcome to Women at Halftime podcast for men and women at mid-career or the halftime of life with issues that concern you. Maximize your skills, resources, and experience to live an even more fulfilling and significant second half of life. Right here with me, Deborah Johnson, on Women at Halftime podcast.
Well, hello. Great to be here with you today. I have a wonderful guest and actually a wonderful friend of mine that I've had for many years, Lynn, Stewart. Thank you for being here today, Jenny. So it's great to have you. And we've got a few great things for you to make sure that you subscribe to. And first of all, to make sure you follow our podcast and that you don't miss a single episode. Make sure you get the book, The Summit, an Allegory. Great little book. A lot of reviews online for you to see there as well.
I haven't. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, you can. Thank you, Jenny.
Great.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So thank you for that little plug right away. But Jenny is an entertainer. And as we talk about what we do as entrepreneurs, as small businesses, as growing businesses, some of the principles that we're going to be talking about today are across the board and not just to entertainers and to artists. I've known Jenny for a long time because she is an artist. I am an artist as well. And so you'll want to make sure that you also get every single episode, and you can do that by making sure you have our weekly e-articles and newsletters as well. goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. So I will say that again at the end, but I want to make sure you all sign up for that. So Jenny, thank you for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm excited. This is fun.
Well, let's give a tiny bit of your background. In the articles that I include with every single podcast, you will get Jenny's link directly to her website and her work, so you'll be able to check her out a little bit more. But you played Nettie in The Carousel and Mother Abbess, that's the big one, in The Sound of Music, and sang that huge song, Climb Every Mountain. And but you've also toured with some major artists like Marie Osmond, can I even say her name? Marie Osmond, who's now very famous with, isn't it Nutra the diet? I see her every time I don't watch a lot of TV, but I'm always she comes on with John Davison, Patrick Cassidy. But anyway, let's talk about this a little bit and how you got those roles and what your background was as an artist and how you went about the audition process, because this is a very interesting, part of your life.
Yeah, it was, kind of a big part in many ways, because it kind of changed my life, because I was a trained opera singer and I had come here to New York and was pursuing my operatic career. I'd already had a Carnegie Hall debut, which was fantastic. And I started doing church singing, but there wasn't a whole lot happening. And one of my friends said to me, you would be perfect for the Mother Abbess in The Sound of Music. And I'm like, well, I always loved that show. I hadn't really, thought about it. But what first happened is kind of a long story. This friend said, this one little company in Pennsylvania, they're having auditions for Mother Abbess. I'll go sign you up if you go do it and do the audition. I said, okay. Because at that time I was working nights at a law firm. There were 5 opera singers there. And this particular colleague lived much closer to where the audition was being held. So I went, and the artistic director, he seemed very impressed. And I thought, maybe this is something I could do. But ultimately I didn't get that part at that time. So since when that audition happened, I became a Mary Kay consultant, and I give Mary Kay big credit for helping me realize being an entertainer is being a business person. You have to learn all that. It's not about just sitting back and waiting for the phone to call, because it doesn't happen. So I was reading this book because of Mary Kay called Choices by Shad Hemstetter. And in that book, it really states how everything we do in life is a choice. I mean, it's a choice whether or not we decide to have coffee or tea in the morning. It's just something, in fact, we don't really think about it. It's a choice, but it's a choice. So the night before this, there was this big audition for a Sound of Music tour. that the same person told me about. By the way, there's this big tour. And I had worked till midnight the night before, and I woke up the next morning. It was pouring down rain. I mean, pouring, not just drizzle, pouring. I'm like, oh my God, do I really want to go to this audition? I already knew it was going to be a big cattle call. And I said to myself, okay, if you don't go to this, then you're choosing not to go for something that everybody tells you is right for you. And then how can you say you're a singer in New York pursuing a career as a singer and you don't go to an audition that's right for you? So I went in the pouring down rain. I'll never forget it. Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And I got there and there were lines of people auditioning for this tour. Anyway, I did the audition. And then they wanted to hear me, sing. I was doing it out of the vocal selections. And then they wanted to hear Climb Every Mountain in the original score key, which I did. And then they said, thank you very much. But I could tell that they liked me. You kind of get those feelings.
Right.
And I got a call back. And I went to the call back. And that went really well, too. And what really kind of cinched it, I felt, although I hadn't gotten it yet, was the director gave me a direction on reading the lines of the character with some other the other characters. And he goes, yes. I'm like, oh, that's a good sign. And then I got the job.
Wow.
And that in itself was like a huge thing. All of a sudden going on this, it was a nationwide tour. Actually, it was international at that point too, because we went to Canada. And we worked in Vancouver and British Columbia and Ontario, Saskatchewan. It was really extensive. Mm-hmm. Then what happened? I'll always remember this, when we were in Fayetteville, Arkansas, home of Walmart.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I was told this tour is going to go to Asia, and we're bringing Marie Osmond in to be your Maria. I'm like, what? So we did. First, we went to Korea. Marie wasn't part of that, but then we went to Singapore, Hong Kong, and Bangkok, wow, and Thailand. And it was really wonderful. And she was just a wonderful person to work with. It was really exciting. She taught me a few things here and there. Mm-hmm. Keep that smile on your face.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't want to smile, but she always did.
A definite entertainer, isn't she?
She is a real entertainer. Yes, and really I'll tell you something else she did. She said this happened in Hong Kong. When people come to buy tickets to the show, they were coming there to see her.
Right.
And she did not feel good this one night. And she felt really bad. And she said, I have to go on at least for the first half of the show because people have bought tickets to see me. And that's what she did. And then the understudy went on for the second half. Wow. That also was a lesson.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, of the perseverance through that. And so she wanted to be true to her audience. Mm-hmm. So, mm-hmm. And that's what a great principle, too, is to show up.
Show up.
And that's another part of showing up, just like you showed up to the audition. And if we don't show up, of course, we're not going to get the job. Of course, it's just not going to happen. And through the pouring rain and everything else. So, well, that's exciting. And what wonderful opportunities for you. We met during a lot of the showcasing for performing arts venues, and you were doing now your solo show, which is a little bit of a different animal in pursuing as well and promoting and the type of venues that you can go into. But let's talk a little bit more about your preparation techniques, because this is absolutely, fascinating as an entertainer and how this translates to so many different areas on preparation. And how did you prepare for those roles? Because you were a trained opera singer. Now, when you're going through school and you're doing all that, you've got these goals, they set your goals, and you're doing the concerts and you're doing all of that. But for a role, a specific role, or it could be almost in anything. It could be in, somebody giving a sales presentation. But how did you prepare?
Well, really the same way I prepared for an opera. I did a number of operatic roles, and that is learning the text first. I mean, reading through the whole meaning. So like in an opera, I'll know every meaning for every word. Of course, in English, it's a whole different story, but really studying the score of the sound, the whole score for The Sound of Music. Right. I also started reading just about every book out there about Sound of Music. I still buy books about the Sound of Music, learning more about, the background and about Maria. That's a big part of it. And then too, I worked with a, musical coach as well to make sure I have all the music learned properly, both with an operatic role and with, the Sound of Music. Right. Also taking care of yourself. I mean, you cannot go out and carouse all night. You have to, it's your instrument is your body. And so you really have to take care of yourself. And that was another thing. For an audition itself, I really do a whole mental preparation with me because I've always had a problem with nerves. I'm very shy. And I just really have to focus on, I'm going to go in there and sing the music, and this is my time to perform, and not worry about, oh my God, I wonder what they're thinking about me, And then if you're doing that, well, that's your audition. You're standing there. What are we going to think? And you're not really doing, Mother Abbess or whatever you're auditioning for. Yeah.
It's great that you brought up the point that you're really shy, because as an entertainer, it's interesting. I'm a definite introvert. I mean, I'm an all-out nerd in a lot of places, because I'm just in front of creating and doing a lot of things. But when you are on a stage or you're in an entertainer role or performance, people do not put you in that category. They put you as this outgoing, you've got you can be on that stage. You can just, do all of this amazing stuff. But really, no, I'm just like me. And this is my persona. And I am now into a different place. And so you really do mentally have to be, putting yourself in that place. So you have to be intentional about it. I say I'm an intentional extrovert when I'm performing. And so I think, as you say, as you were taking on that role and understanding the role, I think that's a lot. And I've learned a lot from actors about this too, because they really want to get into the role. And I was thinking more of a performance, but the personality is so very important throughout all that.
Oh, that's true. Also what's interesting, I'm a member of the Episcopal Actors Guild here in New York, and we have a Zoom call every week. We're reading different books. But you know what the title of the group is called? Intentional Artists.
Oh, interesting.
Intentional Artists.
Now that's one I hadn't heard of. Intentional Artists. I like that. Yeah.
Because you're right. We change our intentions when we're on the stage, Yes. A lot of entertainers and artists are really, really introverts.
Yeah. Well, because they're creatives. And you've got to have those moments, those quiet moments, and to finish things and to do, to create, to do all of that. So it's not all just this big hoopla. Yeah. You're by yourself and gutting it out, definitely. So, and that's really a great point, and great point too about the business.
Oh, yeah.
You've got to do the business.
Oh, yeah.
You've just got to do the business. And we're going to talk a little bit about changing course and about how the reinvention process, because I've talked about this quite a bit in my speaking and in my messaging, but how you have done that, because it wasn't just reinvention during the shutdowns, during the COVID times, during all of that. No, this is a way of life for an artist. So let's talk about that a little bit, about some of your process of reinvention, because one of your reinventions was getting those roles that you got as an opera singer. And you had to show up for them. But what are some of the other times and some of the other reinvention moments that you had, and how you did that?
That is actually a big thing, because people have actually asked me about, well, how did you make the transition from singing opera, from singing musical theater? Right. I always loved musical theater when I was growing up. So maybe, maybe that was part of it.
Right.
But some of the other transitions that have occurred, particularly during COVID, is this is what you're asking, right?
Yes.
Yeah, was all of a sudden this technology, ay, ay, ay. And what? A video camera, what? A ring light? A background. You see, I have this background now.
Right.
And learning how to do these tapes. Listen, I never made a tape with my cell phone. It was like, and all of a sudden, everything started going online.
Right.
You have to present yourself online. I'm still working on a lot of that. Just yesterday, I watched a whole webinar on technology, and this man's setup was incredible. And I said to myself, can I ever do something like that? And I'm like, yes, you can. You just have to do it step by step by step. He did it step by step by step. He didn't all of a sudden wake up one day and, wow, here's my big television studio,
Right.
One of the other things that I'm still working on as well is several of my programs are on DVD. And what I want to do is learn my technology so well that I can do shows where I can talk about the music in the background, just all kinds of things, and then bring in one of the songs from my shows and show that. And all this would be on Zoom. And I know it's possible. I've watched other people do it. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things. But it's a big learning curve.
Yeah. It's a big learning curve too, Jenny. And because we've been friends and colleagues, I've shared part of my journey, and I'm kind of a techie. But I've had my challenges, and I'm pretty open with those challenges. There's a lot of things that are possible, but we have to decide how to use our time too when we're by ourselves. We don't have the technician, person running our sound for us, running our lights for us, running our videos, and we are by ourselves a lot. It gives us a lot of freedom, because we're not paying for all of this other, team around us. But I like the freedom that it creates, but it also creates the challenges of being able to do all of that. But technology is really moving exponentially. I mean, it's just like every notice that I'm reading about some of the health technology as well. Everything's moving so fast right now, with research and everything. So, but we have to just choose. We have to choose. And again, what you said, little step by little step by little step. Add something tiny. If you've not listened to the interview with Linda Fogg Phillips on tiny habits, go back and listen to that episode. I don't have the number of the episode, but it's the end of 2021. Or the first of 2022, and excellent on habits, but how tiny habits. It's the same principle with adding tiny bits of technology, little by little, so you're not overwhelmed. Otherwise, you just get overwhelmed. I've heard so many people say, oh, I just don't do technology, or I'm horrible in technology. I mean, how many people do that? But, you've got to say, okay, I might not be good, but I can be better. And I can learn enough to be a little bit more self-sufficient. So let's get into...
So I want to say one thing about this too. A bass player that has played for some of my gigs,
yes,
he happened to mention to me a couple of weeks ago how he had gone into a recording studio, and I think he's a fairly young guy. Yeah. And he said, I only knew analog recording. He said, this game has all changed with digital. So even those people that we think, oh yeah, they got it down, they know it all. Well, guess what? They don't. We're all in the same boat.
Like, wow. And he's young? Where has he been?
In analog studios. I mean, I think he's young.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know. Isn't that something? When we are at our mid-career, I
mean, he's in his 40s, so,
But he should be, yeah. Although I do say there is a huge advantage to having that analog sound. There's just a little bit difference on the warmth. Now, to the real discerning ear, very discerning ear, most people will not even recognize, that big sort of difference. But yeah, that might be where he's in. But yeah, it's all of us have had to do this. What has forced the issue were the shutdowns, and people that never thought they could even use Zoom. Yeah, they wanted to talk to their families. Sure, they're going to learn. And yeah, all of a sudden you see people being willing to take a few more of those risks, definitely. So, well, let's talk a little bit more about as you are continuing to develop in some of those technology areas, and I know a couple of your stories, like when you said you had to video yourself full length.
Oh, yeah. How do I do this? What?
Yeah, and you're in a New York apartment. So I want people to know this as they are listening to this or watching this. Hopefully you're watching the video too and seeing how beautiful Jenny looks in her red sweater. It looks gorgeous with your background. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm feeling a little washed out today because I was working the last couple days at Disney. I'm tired, but it's a great story about you videoing yourself full length and thinking, oh, yeah, didn't you like cut off your head one time or something?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And not only that, one time the lighting was so off, I had more wrinkles than I ever dreamed in the world I had, because the way the lighting was, you stand right next to me and not see these wrinkles, but there's somehow lights will pick up weird little creases in the skin. Yeah. I was like, wow. Oh yeah, that was all orange and oh man.
It's very humbling. It is very humbling. And I was just talking to a group this morning as we are recording this, it's very humbling to have to watch yourself on your videos when you're doing rehearsing. I do some of my rehearsing on videos as well, as because I've been working on as we speak here, I've been, developing this new keynote and rehearsing for some engagements. And so I do some of that rehearsal in front of video and, being able to analyze it. And it's very humbling. And you think, oh my goodness, I look tired, or I look, and, because the video doesn't always lie. So, but you can get good cameras. So that's the big deal. Good cameras, good lighting. But yeah, there's certain things about this. And, sometimes you just have to do it multiple times. So over and over. So describe some of that process as you have been developing some of that, because you've developed now some more voiceover work, some more auditioning and all of that. So technologically, how some of the things that you've learned and some of the mindsets that you had to overcome.
Well, I'm going to address mindset first, because that really, you have to work on keeping a positive mindset, because all the tech stuff, it's not going to work right away. Mm-hmm. And if you say, I just can't do this, and that's it. You're not going to get anywhere. So the only way you're going to get anywhere is say, yeah, I can do this. Yes. And, keep striving to get better at it. Right. Some of the things, I'm still working on this about sound for singing. Wow. And because you have to bring in, like for a musical audition, you have to bring in the accompaniment. And that has to be on an auxiliary speaker from, say, the Zoom. And then you have to have the right microphone and not overblow it, which is really easy to do. I'm still working on that. I haven't perfected it. Sounds a biggie. In fact, there is a casting director who has these videos. He's really excellent. And he does really try to help people. Yes. You know what he complains about all the time is sound. Oh, upgrade your sound. Get a different microphone. Get this. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you have no idea. We are trying. In fact, I've sent him comments. We are trying, And
Jenny, you bring up something as an artist, because I've faced this. You've seen some of my live streams where I'm playing because I'm putting out more of my sheet music. Mm-hmm. And so one of the best ways for me to demonstrate is just to demonstrate it live and also use tracks, some of the accompaniment tracks that I've started adding. It is when you are by yourself, the rehearsal process is so important. And this is where I want to emphasize how important that is for an artist, but also for anyone in business, not to be afraid to rehearse, not to be afraid to rehearse a sales conversation. Yeah. Because before doing a live stream, usually, and it's not been perfect yet. I tell you what, my lighting or some of the sound, but I usually rehearse it 5 times at least and try to get, so you're not overblowing it. Because when you're working with any sort of acoustic, when I'm on an acoustic grand and I'm using tracks and I'm doing vocals, there's a good chance I'm going to, overblow that mic. It's going to sound really distorted.
Yeah.
So you have to work on all of those levels. Take your notes. So next time it'll get a little easier, hopefully. And you can get a little better. You're not going to get better if you don't do it. And if you're not willing to put out something that's just not perfect all the time, done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. And by the way, I am totally impressed with everything you've been doing. You should congratulate yourself. Pat yourself on the back.
Myself a little pat. But again, that mindset. You mentioned mindset. It is a total mindset, because you're going to go, okay, do I need to let this go or not? Should I redo it? I mean, you can redo things 10 times and it still won't be exactly perfect. And I've done a whole podcast and a whole article about that too. And the done is better than perfect. But, we can hold ourselves back in life in a lot of areas if we just don't take some of those risks. And you've taken a lot of those. So good for you, Jenny. You're doing really well.
Well, and so are you.
Yes.
And have you read Big Magic? Did you read that book by any chance, by Elizabeth Gilbert? I forgot what her middle name is. Anyway, she has a chapter in there just says exactly what you said. Done. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it done.
Done. I will put the link in the show notes to that book too, if anyone wants to look that up, because those are, I always try. I'm an avid reader, so are you. So that's a really good reference for us all. But done is better. It's better.
Done is better than not doing it.
Yeah, than not doing it. Yeah, because we can just hold ourselves back. So, well, now you recently got a grant, which was really fun, because you're there in New York. You're in a small apartment, okay? And I can share a little detail at this point as we are recording this. You still have no gas stove, so you have a little burner.
You want to hear something about that? I found out today. It turns out now there's a holdup in my line and another line in the apartments. We have A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
I found out today, in 1D, the pipes have to be redone, and the landlord's contract with the company that has put in all these new pipes has expired.
Oh, dear.
That's why we're sitting on this, because they're now trying to negotiate a new contract so they can come out and fix the pipes in 1D.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because when people are thinking, oh, you don't know how hard my life is. Okay, so I want them to know that Jenny Lynn Stewart in New York, in her little apartment, is doing it, is working as an artist. She's not had a gas stove, and she's had a burner. Okay,
I have a hot plate.
A hot plate, what's known as a hot plate that they furnished her. She is doing just fine, thank you very much. But it's just the ongoing saga, and you can let all sorts of things in life hold you back. So we can all have our excuses. You're not letting it hold you back. But you got this grant, and I want you to explain that for the New York that was able to give you, and explain that just a little bit.
Okay, so I'm officially a New York City Artist Corps grantee. The original intent of that was to give grants to artists to prepare a project. It didn't have to be singing. It could be artwork, puppets, stencil artwork, anything that was considered artistic. And the criteria was that you had to give a performance or a show or a display or whatever by October 31st, 2021, with the intent of saying to the world, New York is coming back. We're opening up. Everything's going to be great. Well, we all know that didn't happen. And, but meanwhile, I did get the grant. I was one of the people that got the grant. I was thrilled. You mainly just had to present your project and prove that you lived in New York City during the pandemic and that you were an artist. And my particular project was a show called The New York Spirit. And it tells stories of people, how they have were challenged during the pandemic that still basically are going on and still going on, and what got them through it. And then I do songs that, positive songs that are related to their stories.
Right.
Not, 100%, but, that relate can be relatable to the story. And then I was supposed to do it at the New York Library for the Performing Arts at Lincoln Center, the Bruno Walter Auditorium. They were what was called my presenting partner. Well, because one of the restrictions were all of a sudden people had to be vaccinated, their vaccination cards had to be checked at the door. So a vice president of the system, the library system in New York City, decided we're going to have to postpone all the programs that we sponsor until we get this figured out. Like, how many people are we going to need, this, that, and the other. And I do want to make clear, so you could rent the auditorium, but then you had to take all legal responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah. So there were
everything.
Yeah,
yes,
the whole
right.
9 yards. I think
Right.
there were a few people maybe that did that, but no. So then they told me at the grant, the New York Foundation for the Arts, well, we're sorry about that, but you have to have a performance by October 31st, or you have to return the grant money. I'm like, oh no, I had already spent a big chunk of it working with my accompanist, doing publicity, getting music, all of that. That was the big challenge. There were lots of people that loved the idea of me doing a free show. The idea was it had to be free and open to the public. Open to the public. Nobody wanted it open to the public.
Wow.
I did do a couple of shows, which they were thrilled to have a free show, but they did not want it open to the public. And you would be surprised about how many different places that I contacted, and some that you think would have wanted it would, that would be open to the public.
Right.
No. So ultimately, in my neighborhood, there's a park called Inwood Hill Park. And within that park, there's a smaller park called Bruce's Garden. Bruce's Garden was formed, I'm not exactly sure, maybe in the 70s, but it's named after a Port Authority police officer who was killed during 9/11. It's a beautiful park. And it turns out they have little concert series. So I went up to them and I met, by chance, the artistic director happened to be there the day I went up to the park. I'd emailed him first. Well, I didn't know it was him at that point. I sent them an email.
Right.
And I didn't get any response. And then I went to the park. I thought, well, I'm print out my emails, take all my information, I'll go up there. And he happened to be there that day.
Wow.
And so first thing he says to me, oh, I don't know any idea who you are. And I don't know anything about you. I'm like, yeah, well, I live in the neighborhood, and I started telling him everything, and then about the show, and then when I mentioned Johnny Valente, who owns Birdland here in New York, and how I tell his story in the show with Johnny's permission, this man's body changed. I said, oh, are you a musician? And he said, yes, he was. So he's told me to send him, he'd take all the stuff with him, rather. I didn't have to resend it. And he would call me. So it turns out he actually played drums for a very famous jazz trio, the McCoy Tyner Trio. Okay. And McCoy Tyner was a very famous jazz musician. But, jazz obviously was not my world. So, I wasn't familiar with that. So anyway, he called and said, yes, you can do the concert here. And he wants me to come back and do more concerts.
Wow.
He saved me. It's because of him. I did not have to return that grant money.
But you still got your 2 feet out there and, knocked on doors.
I did.
So again, that's part of the business. And keep pursuing, keep knocking on doors, and don't quit. That's a big deal. And in the areas that we are in, I think that's such a big deal. And I want to talk just briefly as we're starting to kind of wind up some of these, things I wanted to talk about. But this I wanted to pursue too a little bit, because that show is now kind of opening up some other possibilities of, expanding, not just as concert work, because just doing the concert work is tough. If you can do some other things, in expanding that, it's very helpful because you've talked about now bringing this even to more of a corporate setting. And you've also kept, I want to notify our audience here that you've had a regular gig. And so your regular gig, so talk about that first, and then I want you to talk about how you are planning to expand this show, because a regular gig for an artist can like save you. It doesn't make as much money right away, but it saves you. And it did during the shutdowns, and it was a major thing for you. So talk about that for a moment too.
It was. It still is. I'm the soloist for Third Church of Christ Scientists at 63rd and Park Avenue. And right before the shutdown, they said, okay, let's record 5 services. And so we did it. It was pretty intense, but anyway, we did it. Excuse me. And at the end of those 5 weeks, they reached out to me and said, okay, we have permission from the Mother Church, which is in Boston. Our soloist and the organist and the readers can come in and do a live stream in person. So I was, oh, thank God. Thank you. And so I started doing that, and there was no issue as far as personal safety goes, because I take an express bus that goes down from where I live in northern Manhattan down to the east side, which is where the church is located. And most of the time it was just me and the bus driver. Wow. So it was pretty safe. It was great. And one time I had gone down by Trader Joe's and I saw him. He was going by, and I thought, should I get on that bus? But no, there's no line at Trader Joe's. I think I'm going to go to Trader Joe's and get some groceries. So I did. So the next week I saw him, and he said, what happened to you last Sunday? I saw you, and then you disappeared. He said, I even got out of my bus to look for you.
That's so sweet.
This is in New York City. I said, well, Trader Joe's won.
That's cute. That's cute.
Yeah. So that has been wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, really all the way through. And it was nice because you got to show up. They did all the tech. And you just got to keep doing your singing. And it was a nice little regular gig. And that's what, these are great regular things that happen that kind of keep us going. It keeps our chops up, first of all, as I say, as a musician. It's nice keeping them up, and that's, what some of I've worked for Disney for a number of years. It definitely keeps my chops up, and it's fun. It's, those are not my main engagements of things I do, but they are great engagements. And so that was a gig that you had that kind of kept going. Very fortunate on that. Now, what are some of your plans as we look forward? And I want you to share this because it's talking about a little bit of the reinvention process that you are still going through now. But it's been a pattern of your life all the way through, of your life as an artist. We keep reinventing. You don't just stay in the same place, period. There is that reinvention process that's constantly going on. So why don't you talk about that with your new show too?
Well, the one thing that I actually had this idea to do a long time ago with the same kind of, I actually had the name of the show picked out a long time ago. And that was to go to corporate conferences in New York City, because a lot of companies come to New York. Hopefully they will again for their conferences, and they hire entertainers. Right. And most of them, not all of them, a lot of them are sales, sales meetings, get the, go rah, rah, rah. And sales is hard. Right. So my idea was to have a positive show and give success stories about people who have been successful, who've, dealt with challenges in the world of sales or in corporate. I mean, just anything in life. Again, like you can do it. Music will change your emotions. I'm telling you, I can be really feeling very sad about something, and I put on some music and immediately I'm happy. Yeah. It just changes, just uplifts my spirits. Right. And that's what I intend to do with this show, as well as I see it could go to other states, and it could be called, the Arizona Spirit, the Ohio Spirit. I mean, and have some local songs and wonderful stories about people living in these various states.
It's so powerful. Music touches the emotions. It touches the heart. and I've shared part of my story. I was almost afraid to use too much of it in my speaking because it takes away from like the message. Oh no, it's part of the message.
It's part of it.
Yes. And that whole strength, as long as your message is very, very strong and it's connected, you just have to find the right ways to use it. Very, very important. It's a skill that not a lot of people have. I mean, there's the 1% of 1% that work in this field. But as you say, it is a business, and it's constant, the reinvention, the work at your craft to keep your chops up, to keep everything going. And you live, this is why I wanted to tell people where you live in an apartment, because you're an opera singer. Okay, so we've seen those movies where people are like banging on the ceiling and banging on the wall. Who is that about? Who's singing? And you're doing auditions and you're doing all of this. But it's part of being in New York, and it's what you just have to do. You've got to get beyond all of that, and with the reinvention. Well, so Jenny, what can you leave our audience? And our audience at mid-career, at the halftime of life, or even during times of great change. I mean, if you've not experienced change in the last couple of years, I don't know where you've been. So
I've been hiding somewhere.
You've been one of those gophers in my backyard. I don't know. So, but a lot of people, you've had all these changes. So what sort of advice, ending words can you leave for people, maybe to encourage them along in their journey?
Well, if you have an idea, go for it. Just go for it. And just know that you can do it. And also keep a positive mindset. If you feel, discouraged, put on some music or go read some positive. I read positive quotes every day.
Yes.
We need it. I think Zig Ziglar has a quote, and I'm going to mess it up, but basically he said, we recommend motivation every day. It's like how you have to take a bath every day, or a shower every day. Otherwise you start stinking. So your thinking starts stinking. You don't want to have stinking thinking. You want to think positive and know.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can do it.
That's such a great message. And it's actually one of those messages that I wrote in the summit of changing your language, your self-talk, right? Mm-hmm. Our little character, Mallory, her name means, ill-fated. How would you like to be called ill-fated? Anyway, yeah. But she had to, in the book, The Summit, she had to change I can't to I can. I won't to I will. She couldn't get to her summit otherwise. And that's what many of us need to do too. And it doesn't just happen once in life. It is a constant, that self-talk that we are constantly telling ourselves, and that sort of language. Those are great words. Jenny, thank you so much. This has been so delightful. I knew you had a lot to share. I've known you, and so sometimes it's hard when you know somebody for a period of time, and you've been colleagues, and when I've organized all of those showcase rooms, I put them together, produced them, and you were part of my showcase rooms. That's how we met across the country, actually, with all of the performing arts, and just a wonderful colleague that I've been able to keep contact with for so many years. And I've heard.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be on your show and your podcast, and to talk about keeping a positive mindset and keep up hope and faith, and you can do it. And read Deborah's books. I've read all of them.
Oh, well, thank you. So. Well, I love what I do. I really love what I do. So I feel very fortunate in that. It's not always been about the money. It's never been about the money. You can't be totally about the money in this field. It's got to be something that you absolutely love and that you want to inspire.
In your heart.
Yes.
In
and
your heart.
So much of music is that wanting to inspire. As we know in teaching, it's more caught than taught. It's not just, not just information. It's caught. And the same thing happens in a speech, in a concert, everything else. That sort of inspiration, the motivation, it's caught. And if we can continue doing that in our little worlds of what we do, hey, I'll just keep doing it, and until my kids put me away somewhere and they say, "Okay, that's enough, Mom." Anyway, but no, that'll be a long time. That'll be a long time. I still have.
Yeah, they're not going to say that, Deborah.
No, they
no,
won't.
I don't think so.
No. I always just joke about it. It's kind of funny. I have 3 boys, so they'll always there's a lot of banter that goes on there. So, but this has been so great. Again, connect with me and with us here at the Women at Halftime podcast, and you can get us womenathalftime.com. You can get there directly there. Sign up to get on our newsletter. That is, I have a lot of websites, by the way, goalsforyourlife.com, all connected, goalsforyourlife.com/newsletter. Very simple, but you can get there, sign up. It's free. I don't spam you, but you will get the weekly episodes and the announcements, which come every week into your inbox, a little bit easier to find. You're not always looking them up. So hopefully you will connect with us. And it's just been a pleasure to be with you. Again, thank you, Jenny, for being
Oh, thank you.
This
This is my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. Really, it's so much fun. And
yeah, it really is fun. And for me, I love what I do again. And being able to produce these, it's in my wheelhouse. And it's just really fun for me to do this, coming in every week in people's lives. So thanks again. And I will look forward to being with all of you then next time as well. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you for joining us. It is because of our wonderful listeners like you that we keep going strong week after week. Share and follow us for new shows to inspire you and encourage you in your life's journey. You can find all of our articles and links at womenathalftime.com.